So my name is Anna Guenther, and I'm the co-founder and chief bubble blower of an equity crowdfunding platform called PledgeMe. Chief bubble blower because when you start your own business, you're allowed to call yourself whatever you want. And when your logo is a bubble and you launch it with a bubble blowing flash mob, it just seems to make sense. My lawyers do refuse to put that on any official legal opinions, though. They seem to think that blowing bubbles in the financial markets is a bad look. I just think that bursting them is. So I'm really lucky and privileged. I grew up believing that entrepreneurship worked. I saw it because my granddad left high school at 15 during World War II because he had some pretty bad teachers, threw his books under a bush and put his name down the next day to buy a tractor. It took a while because it was World War II. He didn't get it for 2 years, but he started selling his services and creating his companies at the age of 17. I didn't leave school at the age of 15. I went to school for a very long time. But I started my first company at the age of 15 with my friends. I started a very, very bad lip gloss company. It was vanilla essence and Vaseline, and it probably did more harm than good. But it taught me that actually you can start something. Unfortunately, I forgot that for a while. I went and worked for the New Zealand government for 5 years in economic development. But I got pretty frustrated and decided to go back and do my master's thesis, which made me even more frustrated. But my master's was a master's of entrepreneurship, which I couldn't spell before I went and did it. But I got really excited about crowdfunding. I was seeing it happening overseas. It wasn't happening in New Zealand yet, possibly because of banking laws and stuff. But I decided that it would be really cool to try to do that. And one of the reasons I was so excited was because as a 23-year-old, one of my first jobs out of university was as a grant administrator. And I thought it was really freaking dumb that a 23-year-old was deciding whether a company should get funding or not. Like, how would I know? I could read the form, but I don't know anything about the company. So I got really excited. I got really excited not only about the solution, but the problem that we were solving. How do you make funding more accessible? And I think it's good that I was more passionate about the problem than the solution, because the first iteration of our website was really bad. I'm surprised people put their credit card details into it. And it's evolved over time, not just the look of the website, but the way we're supporting our community. So what is crowdfunding? Who here knows what crowdfunding is? Yes, everyone, good. It really is as simple as it sounds. You go out to your crowd for funding. You set a goal of how much money you need. You set a deadline in which you want to raise it by, and you offer something in return. The type of crowdfunding that's probably the most well-known is donation-based crowdfunding, where someone is going through an emergency or a really bad time, and you just want to give them money. And the thing you get in return is you feel good, or at least you feel like you're connected to the campaign or the person. And that's what we've seen in Australia, obviously, with the bushfires recently. People just want to support, and they really don't know how. The types of crowdfunding that we support are project-based crowdfunding. That's where you set up a campaign, it's an idea or a project that you're working on, or your album as a musician, and you offer rewards in return. It's everything from the thing you're creating through to experiences. Equity crowdfunding is a bit different. It's next level up on regulations. But instead of getting a reward, you actually get shares in the company, a sense of community ownership. And the third type is crowd lending, where you go out to your crowd and you borrow money from them, and you repay them at the interest rate that you set. So you're paying your crowd instead of the bank. We've supported over 1,400 campaigns over the last few years, everything from a man who's building a bionic hand for his friend, $5,000, $1,000 per finger, through to a brewery who raised $2 million in 2 days and gave their crowd shares in the company, but also handles behind the bar with your name on it if you pledged a certain amount. So New Zealand's pretty cool. Do you think New Zealand's cool? Yes. It was the first country in the world to change its legislation to allow equity crowdfunding. I'm not saying that equity crowdfunding wasn't already happening. It was in the UK and other places. But New Zealand was the first one to actually change its laws to support equity crowdfunding and have proper regulation around it. We were the first licensed platform, the first equal licensed platform in New Zealand to provide equity crowdfunding. And to date, we've had $40 million through on the New Zealand side of our operation. Australia came to the party a little bit later, so New Zealand legislation came in 2014. In Australia, it came in 2017. It wasn't very good when it came in. It was only for 1% of companies, public unlisted companies. I wrote a submission to ASIC that said 99 times that 99% of companies were being left out by their legislation. They didn't respond. But they did change the legislation, yay. And to date, $34 million has been pledged, well, till October 2019, an estimate of $34 million has been invested in companies in Australia. I want to get a little bit deep here, though. I hope you'll go with me on this. This is a new talk, but I want to discuss what we understand to be true. So this is a definition of enterprise that is bandied about in different ways. It's a business, it's a commercial activity considered in terms of profit. Commerce is the activity of buying and selling, especially at large scale. But did you know that before the 1600s, if you wanted to pool your funds together and get it incorporated, so approved by the monarchy, it had to have a public good? Just think about that for a minute. It had to have a public good. Universities, hospitals, roading. In the 1600s, East India Company came in. And so they raised lots of investment from the public, and they went over to East India, and they caused the fabric markets to collapse because they weren't valuing the people and they rioted. I'm simplifying this history a little bit for you. But that didn't work. Collapse, money gone, and then we saw something that's eerily reminiscent of what we've seen over the last few years with the banking crash. What can we learn from the present? You probably already all heard this stat, but by 2025, they're saying there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Little plastics that the fish are eating and we're eating, but also big plastic. And I met this guy, Frank, on the weekend, and this is why I wrote a whole new talk, because I got so fucking excited. Frank is an entrepreneur from Africa. He lived in the slums when he was growing up, and he wouldn't be able to go to school on the days when it had rained the night before because water would come through his roof and he'd have to spend all night trying to get the water out of his home. So he was too tired to go and get educated. And so Frank has decided that he wanted to go out and create an organization that provides opportunities for women in the slums to collect the plastic that is heaped up around them. And he turns it into roofing tiles. And the company is called Ecopastille. If you'd like to support them, I'm not sure how you can, but go and check them out. He's already sold 7,000 of his roofing tiles, and he is so amazing. He's already given 15 jobs to slum women, and they get paid not only in cash, they can also get paid in medical services. So I think we should value people more like that. We should be treating humans, irrespective of where they're born and what they look like humans. But for some reason, we've lost that in the West. This is the difference between CEO pay and the lowest paid worker. It's 300 times. How could you value one human 300 times more than another human? And I know all of you probably already know solutions to this, but you can cap the CEO pay. One of the campaigns that successfully raised money through us was for, this is a great story. Cadbury's decided to stop making chocolate in New Zealand because it was profitable, but not profitable enough. So they made a decision purely based on a spreadsheet and decided to stop making chocolate in Dunedin, where chocolate had been made for over 100 years. And lots of people got angry, like my family stopped buying Cadbury's chocolate. But a group of local city councillors got angry and decided to buy the factory. And they realized quite quickly that $20 million was more than they could legally raise through equity crowdfunding. In New Zealand, the cap is 2 million. In Australia, it's 5 million. So they decided instead to go out and raise $2 million from the community and use that to buy a chocolate company to try and keep some of the chocolate making skills in Dunedin. And they used the tools of the union movement to really think how they could do this well. And so they did things like capping CEO pay. And when they went out to their community, they raised $2 million in 32 hours. People invested, it was $100 minimum. And for $100, you would buy a piece of a chocolate company, a little bit like Willy Wonka. But you'd also get a 20% discount on chocolate for life. So if you ate $500 worth of chocolate, you'd eaten your investment. The thing that excites me, though, is the phenomenal growth we're seeing in social enterprise in the world. This is a graph, it's very old, I'm very sorry, that shows the growth in the UK. But we're seeing the growth as well here in New Zealand and Australia as well. So this woman's name is Brianne West. She started a company called Atique. She makes solid shampoo bars. When she first started it, she was at university, and when she was pitching for people to get some funding, they didn't get it. They're like, why would you create solid shampoo bars? And she tried to explain to them that solid shampoo bars meant she was reducing plastic waste, and you didn't need a bottle filled with water and go into a room filled with water. And because it's solid shampoo bars, you can put compostable packaging around it. And she ended up raising investment from one advisor and then deciding, once she'd moved from her home kitchen into her factory, that she'd raise some more investment from her crowd. She raised $200,000 in 2 weeks, but the more exciting thing is 3 chemists invested. So when she was having trouble in her new factory figuring out how to double her batching, one of those chemists came in and solved her problem in like 10 minutes. But the thing that's exciting for me is last year, Brianne was the 4th fastest growing company in New Zealand, according to Deloitte Fast 50. And she didn't get back to start with. The supporters in the ecosystem in New Zealand just didn't get her, but she's proven them wrong, I would argue. So a community is a group of people, a crowd, I like to call it a crowd, living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. I truly believe that everyone has a crowd. I believe that it's better to strengthen existing relationships rather than creating new ones that are purely based on financial return. Often people think they don't have a crowd though, and including people that are more marginalized in our societies. So this company, they're called Waiapu, and they're Gisborne based, and Gisborne is a town in New Zealand that has the highest rate of Indigenous people, the highest rate of unemployment, and the highest rate of youth suicide. And this organization realized that they needed to do something about that. They wanted to create opportunities for the young people, and really what they wanted to do was create hope. And so they decided that they would create a company around something potentially their young people already knew about. They created a medical cannabis company. Oh crap, I've got 4 minutes. Did you start timing when I was, yeah, okay. They decided to go out and raise investment, and they went to their community. They went around all the tribal meeting houses in their area, and they managed, when they launched, to raise $2 million in 10 minutes. It broke our platform twice, so I really understand technology failing. Once on the first night, once on the second night. But this was a community that people said had no money. But I truly believe it's not all about the money. I think that we as humans can bring so much more. Skills, experience, time. There's so many other things that we have in our toolkit, but we seem to focus on money all the time. I mean, I focused on money too, admit it. I'm not gonna talk about cooperatives because we've already talked about that. Rochdale, great, started 1841. Mondragon, amazing, very big. The thing I like about cooperatives though, is that they're here to include everyone. So after slavery was abolished in the 1860s, African-American groups started banding together because they weren't bankable. And so they'd pool their funds together and start cooperatives. And Martin Luther King said it best, I think, when he said, it's a cruel jest to ask a bootless man to pull himself up by his bootstraps. Your crowd can help in big ways. I'll tell you about this later if you want to talk about it. Or in small ways, which I think is almost more important. This morning I was writing this presentation and I was really stuck. And one of my friends was at the airport with me and he made it 1,000 times better. We at PledgeMe, we love working with companies that have crowds that love them because it's almost an easy sell. It's not like you're selling, you're bringing your community in. And we really want to make things easier. They should be hard for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. And I think sometimes regulation gets it very, very wrong by making it too complicated. We've made money too complicated. So how can I help you? But better yet, how can you go to your crowd and get the help that you need? It doesn't have to be funding. It can be anything.